Welcome to UFHL Now! A close-up look at the ultimate fantasy hockey league. The most realistic fantasy gameplay. High stakes. High reward. Here's your host, the owner of Duckman's domination in the UFHL, and the mighty Mallards of the UFAHL, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to another edition of UFHL Now, shining the spotlight on, simply put, the greatest fantasy hockey platform and fantasy sports platform that there is, literally changing the way fantasy sports will be played. My name is Dean Millard. I am a proud owner of Duckman's Domination. We are on the outside this year of the playoff picture, but we do still have some players that we have leased out. And if you're watching this show for the first time or just discovering this league for the first time, yeah, we go past the regular season, just like the real thing. Everything is just like the real thing. So really exciting times in our league right now and on the platform in general. Of course, we are broadcasting proudly on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. One-stop fantasy sports shop. If you have a fantasy sports show, we would love to hear from you. Daily, monthly, weekly, doesn't matter what it is. Check us out on Twitter at UFS Network, and you can send an email if you'd like more information, UFSN at UFFsports.com. You can also follow along with what's happening with Duckman's Domination on Twitter at Ducks Domination. So this is what we're going to have for you this week on the program. We're going to do our top performers of the week, which we usually do. We'll look at the top 6 players, and we'll dive into the UFHL playoff matchups themselves, as now it's head-to-head. Doesn't matter if you have the second best points in the league. If the opponent you're playing has one more point, you're out. We're also going to explore the top 5 power play point leaders in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League. And our UFHL Insider Larry Fisher will drop by with some really juicy stuff this week. We also have an anniversary to celebrate. So let's get to all of the celebrating right after this.
You're watching the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, UFSN, your one-stop fantasy shop. Get in touch on Twitter at UFS Network. Email us, UFSN at UFFsports.com.
All right, let's dive right into it and start recapping what has been going on so far in the playoffs, which basically, they started last Saturday. So we're looking back at the last week and, some familiar faces to the regular season. Nathan MacKinnon of the Gators, 5 goals, a couple of assists. 2 of his goals are game-winning goals, which we give bonus points for, and he put up a couple of power play points. So, Nathan MacKinnon, health-wise, as long as he's healthy, he's a no-doubter. And then you look at Landeskog, his teammate, but on the Blades of Steel, and he puts up 4 helpers to go along with a goal. He also had a fight after Rantanen took a hit. Landeskog came to the defense, so pumping up that as a strong captain and spreading out the categories and putting 8 shots on goal. Victor Hedman, he has been awesome. Now, you're going to hear a little bit about Hedman in the UFHL Insider, but 6 helpers, 10 shots on goal, 5 power play points. Keep that in mind for later as well. And last year's Conn Smythe winner also dishing out some hits as well. Continuing on and looking at the most important position now, and that, of course, is the pipe man, the goaltenders, Marc-Andre Fleury. Man, this guy just, raises his game so much in the playoffs. He's been making some incredible saves. I don't know if there is a more fun goalie to watch since Dominic Hasek than Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, Dominic Hasek was fun because he might make a save with his skate lace. Like, or maybe his pinky. You never knew what was going to happen. Kind of like there's a guy named Alex Fomichev that played for the Calgary Hitmen. He would double pad stack behind the net on dump-ins. You just never knew what happened. Hasek was kind of that way. And Fleury is a little bit more in control, but he's just so fun because he gets around the net so well. I would be looking at Marc-Andre Fleury for Canada's Olympic team. Even if he came as the third goalie, he's going to bring so much positivity, and he's really doing it for Rock Republic right now. 2-1, he's made 77 saves on 81 shots, and he's averaging almost 6.15 points per game of the fantasy variety. And then there's Tuukka Rask, who was out. He actually cost me a playoff spot in one of my leagues this year because he was hurt so much, but he's back now for the Yetis. And, maybe people thought that Rask being a good goaltender was just as much of a myth as the actual Yeti, but they're both proving that they are the men that myth the legend. So Rask 2-1, a century for saves, just 8 goals against, 5.5 fantasy points per game. And Scott Mayfield of the Islanders, nice showing for the Brutes. A goal and 3 helpers, 12 shots on goal. It's pretty much every series has been awesome. The Tampa, Florida one has been wild, just unbelievable. And so is that Washington, New York Islander one, or Pittsburgh, New York Islander one as well. It got nasty last night. Mayfield has 12 shots on goal. He also has 4 hits. All right, now let's take a look at who the top power play point leaders are. And I mentioned Victor Hedman had 5. He's at the top for Rock Republic. 4 out of the 5 guys on their list are from this same story because that Tampa, Florida series, they're running out of room. I heard actually they were going to build extra penalty boxes now to fit everybody in. Hedman, 5 points on the power play. Kucherov in point, 4 and 3, and then Barkov on the other side from the Florida Panthers with a couple of points. Jonas Donskoy of the Avalanche, and I've talked about this many times. Larry and I talked about it on the playoff draft show. The Avalanche, they spread the scoring around quite a bit. So I don't think it's, Devin Taves went early in that playoff draft. I don't necessarily think Devin Taves is a bad pick in the playoffs because, even though he's in the second pairing, he's still going to get points and get some cookies on the power play. So that's the top 5 power play point leaders, and Victor Hedman off to another strong start in the playoffs as he tries to collect a second straight Stanley Cup and Conn Smythe Trophy. So here are the actual matchups right now in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League. The Grizzlies, they have control of their series with the Battlehawks, and you're going to find out a little bit the Battlehawks have been hit pretty hard by some injuries. So this one looks like, it could be a sweep. It has that look of it that, it could get out of hand a little bit. Same with the Red Army and the Stallions. Now, the Stallions, we should point out, went heavy on the Oilers. Red Army went heavy on the Canadians. And the Oilers and the Canadians have only played once. So if the Stallions-Oilers can get it going, they could get back into this quickly. But it's going to be a tough hill to climb for the Stallions. But the run they made to get into the playoffs was pretty impressive. Regular season champs, the Ice Vikings, always makes me think of the White Walker, the leader of the Game of Thrones bad guys. They're taking it to Blades of Steel. That was a big upset pick by insider Larry Fisher. He's going to touch on that. This one could get a lot closer, and this one is really interesting. The Yetis and the Stingrays. And wait till you hear about what happened with Arlo Scholes, the owner of the Stingrays, in UFHL Insider. He wins the Taco Award. Let me just give you that little bit of a hint. The Stingrays, they've got a dynamite team. The Yetis got a dynamite team. I would hate for one mistake to be the cause of why one teams win this, but that one is an absolute fun matchup to watch. All right, let's check out now the other conference. We've got the Titans with a strong lead on Strong Island. But, this is where it comes back in. Strong Island, they could be the second highest team, but and they got 93.85 points. That would be winning a few of the matchups anyway. There's some huge point totals on this side of things. Rock Republic taking it to the Brutes, 134.1. The Outlaws and West Coast a little bit closer, not too much of a gap, about 17 points give or take, and the Royals and the Gators. Now that is a very close matchup right now. 114 for the Gators, who auto-drafted because they were at the beach. Matt Gunn auto-drafted, and it's working out really well. So what great stories to have in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League. All right, you know it's coming up. Your favorite part of the show. We'll get to all the juicy details, and there's some juicy ones this week, with our UFHL Insider Larry Fisher on UFHL Now.
Time to get the scoop on the UFHL with our insider, Larry Fisher. He's had lines in the water all week long. What will he reel in for us today? Let's dive in and find out what's going on with the UFHL now.
All right, the beat goes on in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, especially with the playoffs, but that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of stuff going on off the ice as well, as there always seems to be. And just before we get into our special welcome back to the commish, I've got to say congratulations to you, Larry. Is this pretty close to your 1-year anniversary here with this wonderful group?
It is. It's coming up. Well, actually, I think today was the 1-year anniversary of the first press release we put out to sort of announce that I was going to join Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports a year ago today. And as we said, time flies when you're having fun and working hard. And it definitely doesn't feel like a year, but it's been a wild ride. And it's amazing to see how far we've come in a year, and looking forward to seeing what it looks like at this time next year.
Yeah, it has been fun. I'm so glad, that I had that conversation with Andrea, who we're going to talk about in a second, almost a year ago or so, because you and I were talking about this about the same time, about, we were both getting started with this. And, this has been, such a life-changing experience, a fun experience. And, I wasn't sure what my life and my career was going to be like after my quote-unquote mainstream media job came to an end. And I can't thank them enough for laying me off and pushing me towards this project. So it has been so much fun, and congratulations on your 1-year anniversary, and congratulations on the commish returning full-time to the UFHL.
Yeah, shout out to Andrea Karanduk, who's back in the saddle as the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League's commissioner. She was the original commissioner. She was largely behind setting up the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League before we got involved, going back to, originally, I guess you could say the plans starting in September 2019, the initial draft and the franchise auctions in January 2020. And obviously Andrea has had 2 baby boys since then. She's got Jake in 2020 in August, and then she had Brody just here in November of 2021. So she's had her hands full with 2 boys under 2, and sort of reduced to a part-time role. I took on some of the commissioner duties throughout this 2020-21 season, but Andrea is transitioning back to being the full-time commissioner, and she'll be taking over for the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League this offseason, and heading into next season, she'll be the go-to girl.
All right. Great stuff, Andrea. Welcome back full-time. And I know she is going to take this league to new heights, and that will include a brand new trophy for this year's and last year's regular season champions.
And that was one of Andrea's first big announcements, was that the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League is going to be purchasing and awarding the Founders Trophy, which goes to the regular season winner, the annual regular season winner. So actually, Andrea Karanduk doubles as a general manager for the Grizzlies, and they were the inaugural Founders Trophies winners back last season in 2020. But of course, with the COVID shutdown and the way the NHL season just ended abruptly, there wasn't much of a presentation or a big deal made of the Founders trophy because it was awarded basically as we were starting the Klein Cup playoffs. And obviously we know we do have a physical trophy, the Klein Cup, that goes to the playoff champion. Last year won by the Monarchs and Ashley Murray, and she got lots of FaceTime and lots of publicity with the Klein Cup, and so can't wait to see who gets their hands on the Klein Cup this July. But certainly the Founders Trophy as regular season winners is just as hard, or obviously most would say harder to win in fantasy hockey the regular season. And talking with the Founders and Andrea Karanduk, it just made sense to have a physical trophy for the regular season winner as well. So the Ice Vikings this year, Jeff Brown and Brian Smith, they'll have a Founders Trophy on its way to Newfoundland here in the months to come to celebrate their championship or regular season pennant title for the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League in 2021.
What a beautiful thing to put on the mantle. And, we fully plan to have several, not one, not two, not three, not four of those all over this set in coming years for this show and Duckman's domination. So I'll have to make some room. Maybe the Moog wall is going to have to be like the Founders Trophy wall or something like that. I don't know. I might have to get into that. But that is just so exciting. Just another, part of the VIP treatment and what makes this league top shelf compared to everything else. And, it makes you wonder why teams might want to sell, but there is a profit to be made, as we have seen. And there's kind of an on-again, off-again selling situation with Red Army. What's the latest?
Yeah, and so Red Army would love to get there, or thought they were getting their hands on a Founders Trophy this season, right? They were leading the regular season standings for the bulk of it. And one thing with the Founders Trophy we should note is that they are full-size, actual physical, hard, solid steel trophies, and they're fully engraved as well. So as we've seen last year with the Klein Cup, you get your name on, your staff on, and all the players on your UFHL roster go on these, are engraved into these trophies. So it's the real deal. It feels like you're winning the Stanley Cup as the Klein Cup, or now the President's Trophy as the Founders Trophy. But Red Army, I don't think they're just disappointed about the season and the fact they slipped out of first place, had to settle for second place, barely hung on to second place. But I think Luc Grenier, the transition from doing things through spreadsheets and bank accounts into the crypto world and the UFFS platform. And again, it just launched on May 1st. We're not even a month in, and or 3 weeks in today, you can say. And a lot has happened, but there's been some glitches, some kinks as well along the way, and everybody's sort of working through this together. It's new, it's evolving, and there will be some changes as we go and some improvements, but everything is new. And I think that's been a bit overwhelming for some of the franchises, including Luc Grenier, who doesn't come from a crypto background and is kind of wrapping his head around where this platform is going and what this platform was meant to be from day one, which is, crypto based, and the score coin is going to be the currency for UFF Sports. So I think Luc Grenier has, like I said, on again, off again, had his franchise Red Army up for sale. He has had a serious offer. I know, Dean, I believe that offer to be in six figures USD value. I know that we had the second last franchise, or 30th place franchise, the Blizzard, who are second to last in the standings this season, sold for more than 50,000 USD a couple weeks ago to Showtime. So I think that really set the bar when you look at Red Army being second place at the top of the standings, and you look at that roster, that protected list, the fact you wouldn't have to invest too much more into the roster protected list for the next 5 to 10 years. You could almost ride it out with the current core group that Luke's assembled and be profitable every year. So it's probably the most valuable, the most desirable franchise. And I think Luke's looking for mid six figures. I've heard anywhere from 300,000 to 600,000 USD is what it would take for him to sell. But I think that the day he sold, he would regret it the next day, because I know Luc Grenier enjoys the gameplay side, the competitive competition side as much as anybody, as well as the banter in the community. He's a big part of it. So I think he would regret selling, but he's certainly entertaining offers. And if somebody meets his asking price, I do think Red Army could be available for sale.
And there will be people that will be able to meet that asking price.
Yeah, there's people already, wallets. Again, the nice thing about the crypto world is everything is transparent. You can go to view block and see all the wallets and the holders. And there are people that, are holding more than 2 million Scorecoin USD valuation. So certainly they could afford the 300 to 600,000 USD valuation of Red Army if they connect with Luke and that deal comes together. So there's a lot of, as we call them in the crypto world, whales out there, and a lot of people are very interested in getting involved with UFFS. And again, they know all the other sports are coming. You got the UFLB. There's obviously Andy McNamara has the UFAHL, the NFL league, which is going to be, it'll be crazy to see what those franchises sell for from the initial auction. But there's a lot of people holding some big bags of Scorecoin that are going to get involved, and it's only going to grow. I think I looked today, Dean. I think there was almost 700 holders of Scorecoin now, and I think in a year from now we might be talking about 7,000 or 70,000 holders of Scorecoin. So this is going to continue to grow, and we're just getting started. And that's what I keep reminding Luc Grenier, is that these are early days. You're at the ground floor still, even though we're technically a season or a season and a half into the UFHL. The rest of the sports are just getting off the ground, and everything sort of in the hockey side was basically the pilot project or the beta mode, and we're still just we're 3 weeks into the platform, right? So it's only going to get bigger and better from here. So hopefully he hangs on and for the ride, and if he doesn't, I think you're right. I think those buyers are coming and he won't have to wait long.
Yeah, Luke, my man, this message is for you. Steinbrenner, I love your passion, but the on again, off again, you got to either adapt and learn, and it's taken me a long time, it's taken other people, or the sell. It's starting to remind me like a kid taking his net from the street hockey game home because he doesn't like the way the game is going, and he's done so many amazing things in this league, building that roster. What he did at the draft was amazing last year. It would be a shame to lose that passion and that personality. But you just got to either stick in with it and adapt and really dive in, or say, you know what, that's it, I'm going to sell. The on again, off again, and no owner is bigger than the league. We could lose owners and gain owners. The league is still going to go. So I really hope you dive in full marks. And he mentioned on Telegram that he was going to try to do that today, but we have seen that before. So stick with it, Luke, or make the sale. But this is a very new system, never been done before, so there are going to be kinks, and what he has done has been amazing. So I really do hope he stays. But sticking with Red Army, we've seen partnerships form a lot in this league, and they were acquiring and building a staff, but one less management member of Red Army this week.
Yeah, again, the off-ice, the non-crypto world, the hockey world has also brought some frustration for Luc Grenier this week, and the fact that Connor Bedard, the prized prospect from Ruby ISS scouting agency, who, after Elaine and Harrison parted with Elite Assassins and focused on the scouting agency, Luc Grenier and Red Army swooped in and affiliated with Ruby ISS and with Harrison Miller and Tim, and basically did that, eyeballing Connor Bedard, Matvey Mishkov, Brad Lambert, Brant Clark, Owen Power, all their big name prospects that they accumulated from last August's futures auction. And I believe the deal was that Luc Grenier, through his other scout, Andrew Grover of Alpine Prospects, would sort of have first right of refusal or be able to match any sale. And unfortunately, the miscommunication, whatever the case there, Brennan Kopp, who is the GM of the expansion Bentley Jacks and also a scout in the UFFS platform, stepped up with a big offer for Connor Bedard and landed him for a trade package. But the main exchange there was 7,200 Scorecoin. And so that was a record setting. That was the most we've seen for a player value thus far. And Luc Grenier woke up to see that in the morning, that transaction had happened, and wasn't aware that he didn't have a chance to match that. So he was frustrated, and that ultimately led to a parting or a letting go of that affiliation between Ruby ISS and Red Army. But, I think they came together a couple days later, and Andrew Grover of Alpine Prospects actually purchased Matvey Mishkov for 4,500 SCO. So I think there's still a working relationship there, but maybe not the affiliation as far as having Harrison Miller on Red Army staff as the director of player development. I think there was a bit of a falling out there, and they went their separate ways, but still a working relationship, as evidenced by the Matvey Mishkov sale a few days later.
Harrison doing some really good wheeling and dealing. And you know what? It's going to get to the point where you're going to have these on paper detailed contracts. So we saw a partnership before dissolve because there was that miscommunication. And you know, we've said all along, Larry, that this system is going to be a lot of rich people hiring the best fantasy players. And when that happens, you can bet there's going to actually be contracts. So it's almost like you have to put things on paper and put things in writing so everybody knows all the details of what's going on.
Yeah, I think we're at that point now, Dean, where I think that's recommended because there is, it is high stakes. You know, we're talking, you know, high dollars involved in the score coin, certainly. And I think, with these partnerships, because you're building out your staff, much like the real world. Most franchises now have GMs, assistant GMs, capologists, marketing directors, you know, you name it, social media person, everything else. If you're going to have a staff, you're essentially running a small business, and you probably do want to get in writing the terms for each position that you're bringing on board. And obviously there it was probably a verbal thing with Red Army and Ruby ISS, that Red Army, through their other scouting affiliation with Alpine Prospects and Andrew Grover, would be able to match any offer that came for a Ruby ISS prospect. Connor Bedard got an eye-popping offer from Brennan Kopp, and Harrison Miller couldn't say no to that offer. He was excited by it. He pulled the trigger, and I guess Red Army then turned around and sort of pulled the trigger on that affiliation with Ruby ISS after missing out on Connor Bedard, who Red Army would like to have a controlling interest in and target him in the 2023 entry auction for the UFHL down the road when he becomes eligible to play in the NHL and the UFHL.
All right, let's get to insider right and wrong. I give you full credit. You make a prediction and it doesn't work out yet. You're fully admitted. So insider right and wrong sounds like a showcase game on The Price is Right or something. But start us off with right and wrong for the insider.
Yeah, so sometimes you got to own it, right? And That's what's happening here. We got some fun at the insider's expense, and I know Scott Lowater's been having a fun week with this one. But during the UFHL live playoff draft special that we did, Dean, there was probably only one pick that I criticized or was skeptical about, and that was Freddie Gaudreau in the sixth round. And just when you said the name, it took me back a little bit. I'm thinking, okay, Johnny Gaudreau's not in the playoffs. We're not talking about Johnny hockey. This is Freddie Gaudreau, not Johnny. And you know, Frederick Gaudreau did have a little bit of success in the playoffs with Nashville when he was younger, but he's sort of been off the radar for much of this season. He hasn't had a big role in Pittsburgh. And just knowing some of the names that were left on the board, a guy that went 5 picks later that I really liked was Robert Thomas. And you know, guys like that were still available. And it was a very early pick. And it took me, I was taken aback by the selection of Freddie Gaudreau and sort of insinuated that he might be a healthy scratch in the playoffs. But Scott Lowater was keeping close tabs on Pittsburgh. His first and second round picks in the playoff draft were of Jenny Malkin and Jeff Carter. Freddie Gaudreau was skating on line with Malkin and Carter in practice leading up to game one. And he's been a hit so far for the Yetis as a 6th round pick. He has a goal and an assist through 3 games there. And he is playing with Malkin and Carter and playing a fairly significant role. So good on the Yetis for recognizing Freddie Gaudreau. And that's I have to wear that one. The insider missed out on the fact that Freddie Gaudreau would have a decent role in Pittsburgh for these playoffs.
Well, you know what? Fantasy hockey, if it's about anything, it's about chirping your opponent, your friend, your arch rival, whatever it might be. And the insider, he's not immune to that, right? So it's all about chirping when it comes to fantasy hockey. What about being wrong on the sweep?
Yeah, I'm not off to a great start with my predictions either, Dean. And I only took one sweep this year. I thought, okay, out of 8 series, which one could possibly be a sweep? And I took Toronto over Montreal. Reason being, I knew Carey Price was coming off a concussion. I wasn't overly confident in Jake Allen or Caden Primo going up against the Rocket Richard winner, Austin Matthews, and all Toronto's firepower. But here we are, less than 24 hours removed from game one, and the sweep is off the table. There won't be a sweep in the Toronto-Montreal series. Obviously, a lot of factors there. Carey Price comes back, stands on his head, makes a phenomenal save off Mitch Marner in the third period to keep it a 2-1 game. Paul Byron scores the goal of his life shorthanded for the winner. And the big story in that game, Dean, was obviously the hit or accidental hit by Corey Perry on John Tavares in the first period, fairly early on. The Leafs lose their captain, and that's obviously a different game if John Tavares is around, and now he's been diagnosed with a concussion. So a different series that changes the complexion of the series without John Tavares for Toronto. So obviously predicted the sweep before any of that happened, but seeing Carey Price in fine form and being able to steal a game and come back from his concussion, and then see John Tavares go down to a bad concussion, it's that prediction's looking a little bit on the rocks.
Well, there still could be a sweep. It just, might not be the sweep that you would be calling, I guess you might say. All right, I went with your prediction in this one, in my predictions. I used the insider, so I'm glad that you're sticking to this prediction, even though it's not off to a great start.
Yeah, the regular season winner Ice Vikings had the least players carried over to the playoff draft. They had to fill 15 spots, and they were going up against Blades of Steel, who had 9 forwards carried over, and really some firepower with guys like Austin Matthews and Gabriel Landeskog, and the list goes on. And on paper, going into that playoff draft, it looked like a landslide for Blades of Steel. Ice Vikings did a phenomenal job in the playoff draft, as you would expect of the regular season champions, starting off with Mark Stone and Riley Smith from Vegas with their first and second round picks. And they've been performing well, including last night's win to take a 2-1 series lead for Vegas. But out of the gate, the Ice Vikings have picked up right where they left off in the regular season. They're actually third in total fantasy points through 6 days of the UFHL Klein Cup Playoffs. They're trailing only the Titans and Rock Republic in overall fantasy points thus far. So Ice Vikings haven't skipped a beat, but you're right, Dean. I am going to stick with my prediction of the upset and stay well on course with the Blades of Steel. I think, I just look at the firepower they have up front. Ilya Samsonov's back for Washington now. I think he played well in his first game. If he gets going, that could be good news for Blades of Steel, but it ultimately comes down to the forwards they carried over to the playoffs. That was their core, and that's what I liked going into this matchup. And I still like, they have a lot of players from Winnipeg. Obviously, Nick Ehlers is out, but they could get him back. They have a lot of players from Winnipeg, a lot of players from Toronto, and a lot of players from Montreal. Josh Anderson scored a big goal for them last night. Their roster is just getting started. They missed out on a lot of those early games. They're going to make up some games before the end of the first round. And that's the nice thing about the Klein Cup playoffs is the first round starts with the first game of the NHL first round, and it ends with the last game of the NHL first round. So it spans the entire first round. I think the Blades of Steel have a long runway to make up this ground, but so far so good for the Ice Vikings, and they're making me look bad so far by convincing a lot of people to take the upset and take the Blades of Steel, including Duckmans.
Yeah, indeed. Still time for that upset to happen, but we can't do this without pointing out what you did get right. And I do want to point out you come up with these notes. So for those people watching, this isn't me just hammering on you for all the things you got wrong, but you did get some stuff right in the Or division.
Yeah, so a hat trick of wrongs. We have to offset that with at least one right. And going into the playoff draft, I was really high on the Lemieux division, and I said, that Yetis and Stingrays matchup, because of the Mitch Marner blockbuster trade, I said, everybody keep an eye on Yetis and Stingrays. That's the marquee matchup. And I said, I think Blades of Steel can upset the Ice Vikings. So that's going to be another matchup in the Lemieux division that everybody should pay attention to. After the playoff draft was over, when we were recapping it, I said, you know what? As good as the Lemieux division matchups are going to be, I think the Or division is where the power resides. Coming out of the playoff draft, I really loved what Rock Republic and the Titans did in the playoff draft, as well as their opponents, Strong Island and the Brutes. I said, these 4 franchises could end up in the top 10 overall points after the first round. These could be some slugfests, and so far that has proven true with the Titans in first place in the overall fantasy points through 6 days, and the Rock Republic right behind them in second place. So the top teams so far coming out of the playoff draft through 6 days do reside in the Or division, which is one thing that I was fortunate to recognize and call, saying, let's divert our attention a little bit from the Lemieux division and see what's going on in the Or division. But of course, these are head-to-head matchups, Dean. Doesn't matter whether you're first place in total fantasy points or second last. If you have more fantasy points than your head-to-head opponent in the playoffs, unlike the regular season where it's total points throughout, this is head-to-head. And so the Titans have a hefty lead on Strong Island, and Rock Republic have a sizable lead on the Brutes as well. But I don't think either of those matchups are over yet. I think as we've said, I think Strong Island and Brutes drafted really well too, and they're going to have their work cut out for them catching up to Titans and Rock Republic. But really, that OR division is going to be fun to watch over the next couple weeks or week and a half as the rest of the first round plays out in the NHL as well as in the Klein Cup playoffs.
Okay, so 15 picks in the playoff draft, and you have 15 favorite players from one from each round. So roll through this for us.
Yeah, so this was by request, Dean. After the playoff draft, they said, why didn't you recap your favorite pick in every round? And I said, well, we already were on the live broadcast for 2.5 hours. Maybe I'll rattle them off in the UFHL Now Insider segment. So I'll do a quick rundown. And I actually, Dean, before I get into them, I copied these down last Sunday or on Sunday. So there was only, one game played at that time. So some of these picks are looking good for me and some of them are not looking so good. But first round, I really like the Victor Hedman, 6th overall to Rock Republic. Reigning Conn Smythe Trophy winner. He was actually the second defenseman off the board behind Devin Taves. I really like Victor Hedman, and that's turning out to be a potential steal for Rock Republic at 6th overall. Second round, going back to Rock Republic, 22nd overall, Alex Killorn. I'm kind of on the Tampa bandwagon. I have Tampa losing to Colorado in the final, so that's probably why I like that pick. Alex Killorn being the unheralded member of Tampa Bay's top power play unit. Third round, Tuukka Rask, 36th overall to the Yetis. Shocking that Tuukka Rask, arguably the top goalie on paper, available in the playoff draft, a Stanley Cup champion from years past, slipped until the third round, so I love that pick by the Yetis. Honorable mention in the third round, I did like the picks of Anthony Cirelli and Anthony Beauvillier, the two Anthonys, going to the Battlehawks and Strong Island, respectively. Big fan of those players, thought they could rise to the occasion in the playoffs. Fourth round, Yetis again, Brendan Gallagher at 52 overall. Although I took Toronto in the sweep, I thought Brendan Gallagher having a time to re-energize down the stretch, heal up. I thought he'd have a big playoff. He had a quiet game one, but I think if Montreal pulls off this upset, Brendan Gallagher is a big part of it. Fifth round, Ryan McDonough to the Brutes, 77 overall. And I think Ryan McDonough, the reason I like that pick at the time of the playoff draft was the uncertainty around Victor Hedman. He's playing hurt. He's expected to get surgery after the playoffs. I thought Ryan McDonough would eat up some extra minutes, and he's been a good player for Tampa Bay so far with 3 assists in 3 games. Going to the 6th round, we already mentioned Robert Thomas over Freddie Gaudreau. That would have been my pick. I like Robert Thomas, 91 to West Coast Express. He's got a couple points so far, seems to be stepping up for St. Louis. 7th round, now we can get into some more wrongs, Dean. Zach Parise, 104th overall to the Stingrays. Obviously, we all know Zach Parise is a veteran guy, prideful guy. I really thought, although he's past his prime, I thought he would be a guy that got into the lineup and made an impact in the playoffs for Minnesota. He's been a healthy scratch through the first 3 games of that series. I expect that to change. Another guy we're going to talk about is out, so I expect Zach Parise to come in and possibly make an impact for Minnesota. 8th round, Connor Timmins, 118th to Rock Republic. With Bowen Byram sidelined down the stretch, Connor Timmins got into the lineup for Colorado, really looked good. I liked him going into the playoffs, and I think he's a guy that will get better as the playoffs go on because he's a young guy. And again, I have Colorado going all the way. So looking at the other picks in that round, Connor Timmins was one that stood out for me. 9th round, I had Marcus Johansson, which seemed late for Marcus Johansson of the Minnesota Wild, 142 to the Battlehawks. But as we know, Dean, broken arm last night. He didn't do much through the first 2 games and broken arm. He's done for the playoffs now. So that wouldn't have been a great pick by me at that spot. 10th round, I took Ryan McLeod of the Oilers. There was a lot of young guys picked that round, Cal Foote, Connor McMichael. But for me, Ryan McLeod was the guy I knew was going to be in the lineup, get a chance at third line center. So I like that pick by Strong Island at 159. 11th round was sort of a coin flip for me between Trent Frederick to West Coast Express and Morgan Geekie to the Ice Vikings. I like both those players. I think they could make an impact in the playoffs, but thus far, neither of them have suited up, which was surprising to me because Trent Frederick all season long was a thorn in the side of Washington's Tom Wilson, and I thought we'd see Frederick and Wilson going at it in this round, get some penalty minute points and stuff for West Coast Express, but Trent Frederick's still probably recovering from injury and not fully healthy. But Frederick and Geekie there, 12th round, I'll just rattle off these last 4, I guess, because these players haven't had an impact yet or they're injured. But 12th round, Caleb Jones to Strong Island. 13th round, Ryan Paling to Red Army. That's one where Montreal won game 1, without obviously Ryan Poehling, who's been a big performer in the AHL, Cole Caulfield, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Alexander Romanov. They went with the vets in game 1 and they won. So we won't see Ryan Poehling in game 2, but he's a guy that could be part of that youth injection as the playoffs go. And then the last two were the Ice Vikings. If they're expecting to go deep and they're looking at teams that could go deep, why not take guys like Andre Cachet in the 14th round, who's been injured most of the year for Boston, and Eric Johnson in the 15th round for Colorado. Guys that could, if Ice Vikings and Boston and Colorado get into that second, third round and those guys come back, that could be a big boost down the stretch for the Ice Vikings. So some smart late picks by the regular season winners and lots of good picks overall. Those were hard decisions to make as far as my favorite picks or who I would have taken in each round.
And then it's always fun when you're watching a playoff draft and some guy starts tearing it up and everybody's looking to see who has them. And nobody has them. And then all the second guessing begins about, a playoff draft's hindsight is 20/20, obviously, as it is with everything. So you can second guess all the guys that weren't picked quite a lot in a playoff because different guys step up. And there's, some notable players that were not selected.
Yeah, I sort of put together the top 10 undrafted players so far, Dean, and these guys aren't making a huge impact in the playoffs, but a guy like Nick Holden, defenseman for Vegas of the Monarchs, he's up to 6.5 fantasy points. Unheralded guys like Dominic Toninato scored the winning goal in game 1 for Winnipeg on a deflected point shot, but nobody picked Dominic Toninato, who's actually owned by the Farm Scouting Service in Colin Mills, a scout, but he's eligible. I mean, He's not owned by a playoff franchise. He was eligible to be picked. Stephen Lawrence, similar Carolina forward for the Snipers. Nico Mikola, St. Louis blue liner for Dynasty. Patrick Brown, who got an assist last night from the UFAHL Mystics, the Mystics farm team. He's a Vegas forward. Tanner Jeanette, this is the interesting one, Dean, at number 6 on the list. He was eligible. He's a part of the Blades of Steel's UFAHL affiliate. And he wasn't called up to be part of their playoff roster simply because they already had 9 forwards, and they actually filled those extra spots with guys like Mason Appleton and Jake Evans. So guys that are just as good or potentially better than Tanner Jeanette. But a bit surprising that nobody else took Tanner Jeanette because he did have some points down the stretch and some goals with Nashville, and he could be a decent player. Daniel Carr, a guy we know, he UFHL Glacier Cats, the North Stars farm team from Washington. And then one that I like, a couple here, the last 3 might be the biggest 3 in my opinion going forward. Christian Vesalainen, young forward, former first-round pick for the Winnipeg Jets of the Blizzard, was available. Slater Cuckoo, returning from injury, played Saturday right before the playoff draft. That was his first game in months, but defenseman for Edmonton. He got into the lineup for game 1. He's property of the Eliminators. He went undrafted. And last but not least, Dean, Anton Strahlman, veteran guy, defenseman for the Florida Panthers, property of the Mystics. He played over 24 minutes in last night's overtime win for Florida. So a bit surprising that Anton Strahlman didn't get drafted, especially when you look, guys like a Freddie Gaudreau at the time of the playoff draft. Maybe some of these guys are bigger names that on paper than Freddie Gaudreau or have better careers, or even a guy like Ryan Lomberg, who we can keep letting Scott Lowater slam dunk on me because he also picked Ryan Lomberg and he scored a big goal for Florida as well, actually the overtime winner. So you can kind of go up and down the list. One thing that's worth noting here too, Dean, is the top 3 players that are available in the playoff list. When you go to available players, they were players that were omitted from playoff rosters. So number 1, you have Craig Anderson, the Washington goaltender, who is left off the playoff roster by the Gators, and nobody really expected Craig Anderson to be a factor in that series. He played 2 or 3 of the games already. Ilya Sorokin started game 1 and won game 1 in overtime for the Islanders. The Royals left Ilya Sorokin on their protected list, didn't bring him in for the playoffs, and opted to draft Sergei Bobrovsky instead as a more experienced Russian. So that decision's looming large. And then third at last here is Ryan Reeves, who was on the IR at the end of the regular season, which made him eligible to not be carried over to the playoff draft. And the Outlaws left him off the roster. And Ryan Reeves, doing what Ryan Reeves does, he's been a physical force, banging and crashing in that Minnesota series. He's up to 7.5 fantasy points as well. So those are 3 guys that were left off playoff rosters and 10 guys that were eligible to be drafted and went undrafted.
Yeah, always about, you're always second guessing decisions, but that's what it is. You got to make predictions on who's going to be in the lineup and who's not, and who's going to produce and who's not. Okay, so quickly give us a breakdown of what's happening with the UFHL NHL playoff pool and the predictions that we all made.
Yeah, so there were 18 entrants, 20 counting myself, the pro, and Darren Bates, the rookie, doing our own side challenge, our own side bet thing. But 18 entrants, so that at $50 entry fee or 50 SCO score coin entry fee took the prize pool to 900 score coin, Dean. So first place is going to get 450 score. Second place, 225 score. Third place, 135 score. And then essentially the two entrants or contestants that fared the best with the just strictly NHL picks and strictly UFHL picks, not the combined picks, will basically get their entry fee back. They'll get 45 score coin, 5% of the prize pool there. But first, second, and third place overall from the combined standings, UFHL and NHL will get the big prizes. Worth noting here with the predictions before we get into them, Dean, I wasn't the only one who was wrong on the Toronto sweep. Alex LeBlanc from the Snipers and Dale Hardy from Spitfire Scouting and the UFAHL Spitfires also predicted Leafs in 4. So 3 of us were had that one crumpled up and thrown in the garbage, that prediction for Toronto in 4. I like to go through the matchups every year and sort of see how they played out. So you go into the UFHL, starting the UFHL. In that Gretzky division, ironically, both Red Army and Grizzlies got 18 of 20 votes or picks. So very lopsided there. Red Army over the Stallions and Grizzlies over the Battlehawks, 18-2. In the Lemieux division, here's the one that I influenced too many people, Dean. 10-10, Ice Vikings and Blades of Steel. That one's a deadlock, a draw, 10-10. So it'll be interesting to see who gets the points out of that matchup. The other series there was a bit surprising, but Yetis 18-2 over Stingrays as far as the picks go. And then in the Orr division, this one is the most lopsided for the UFHL. Titans over Strong Island, 19-1. And the only submission that picked Strong Island was Duckman. Yeah. So there you go, Dean. If Strong Island pulls this off, you'll be the only one out of the entire pool that gets the points for Strong Island. Rock Republic was actually, and the Brutes were the closest matchup in the UFHL at 12-8. So 12-8 was as close as it got. And then in the Howe division, you can see the Outlaws 14-6 over West Coast Express, and the Royals 15-5 over the Gators. And worth noting, Dean, the Gators as of today are the only underdog, the only lower seed that are leading their playoff matchup. And I think the reason everybody picked the Royals was Matt Gunn got stuck on auto draft and didn't get to pick his own roster for the playoff draft for the Gators. But his auto picks, JG Pajot and Jordan Stahl, among others, have started hot in the playoffs and had big performances. So the Gators are staying ahead of the Royals so far, potentially being the upset there since 15 out of 20 picked the Royals.
You know, it'll be interesting once we bring in betting how much you're really going to be influencing people, and then maybe you're influencing the line. Who knows what's going to be going on with this? There's so much to have fun with. What about the Klein Cup champion predictions?
Yeah, so Klein Cup champion predictions, the Titans. Jacob Cambridge and the Titans got 5 out of 20 picks or votes. So the Titans are the Klein Cup favorites according to the 20 entrants for the UFHL NHL playoff pool. Behind them, the Grizzlies with 4 picks. And then there's 4 franchises that got 2 picks each. The Ice Vikings, including the rookie Darren Bates, likes the regular season champion Ice Vikings to pull off the double. Rock Republic, including myself, the pro, gets 2. Red Army and Yetis also have 2 votes for the Klein Cup. And then last but not least, the Outlaws, Blades of Steel, and Battlehawks each got 1 vote each. And then if we flip over to the NHL matchups, Dean, and I'll run these off quickly because they're interesting as well. That North Division, the Canadian division, Toronto and Edmonton, both overwhelming favorites at 17-3 over Montreal and Winnipeg. Of course, we know Montreal and Winnipeg both won game 1. So there's 17 unhappy entrants on those series so far. And then you go into the West Division, Colorado over St. Louis, 19-1. Horse Lake Scouting was the only one to take St. Louis in 6 games. Vegas over Minnesota, 17-3. And then you go into the East Division, the Central Division. And this one's really interesting, Dean, because both underdogs, both lower seeds, although hard to call them underdogs, actually are the favorites in the UFHL NHL playoff pool. The Islanders over Pittsburgh 12-8 and Boston over Washington 14-6. And then in the East Division, or maybe that is the Central Division, I might sometimes get those two flipped around, but Carolina over Nashville 19-1. And again, Horse Lake Scouting, Andy Karanduk is the only one on the Nashville bandwagon. So if Nashville and St. Louis win, Andy Karanduk's going to be a happy camper and looking good coming out of the standings in the first round. Tampa Bay, defending Stanley Cup champions, although they're the lower seed against Florida in the battle of the state of Florida, 12-8 in favor of Tampa Bay there. And something that's interesting, Dean, is there was no unanimous predictions in either league. There was none of the 8 matchups came out 20-0. And but Titans in the UFHL, Colorado and Carolina in the NHL were the 19-1 favorites to defeat Strong Island, St. Louis, and Nashville, respectively. As we mentioned, the only tie was the Ice Vikings and Blades of Steel, 10-10. And then the 3 upsets predicted in the NHL. There was no consensus upsets in the UFHL. All the picks were in favor of the favorites, except for the tie between Ice Vikings and the Blades of Steel. But in the NHL, there were 3 predicted upsets. The Islanders, Boston, and Tampa Bay to beat Pittsburgh, Washington, and Florida, respectively. But when you hear that, those don't sound like upsets. Those sound like coin flips of series. But certainly that's the way it broke down. And then the Stanley Cup champions, Colorado is the overwhelming favorite, 9 out of 20, which is a pretty eye-opening percentage of entrants. 9 out of 20 picked Colorado, including the pro myself. Vegas got 4 votes. They were second on the list. Toronto had 3, including the rookie Darren Bates. Tampa Bay had 2, and Florida and Carolina each had 1.
Man, this is going to be so fun. There's always so many things going on, different contests like this one. You know, if you're not even involved as an ownership or a GM, the UFGA has a contest going on right now for the PGA Championship. Phil Mickelson, 5 under right now. Pretty impressed with Lefty. And, of course, we have one going on with baseball in the UFLB where we're predicting this week who's going to have the most RBIs. So much fun no matter what level you were involved in within the UFFS platform. All right, insider advice for dummies this week. I'm going to be listening for sure.
Dean, I don't have much for insider advice. The bag's pretty empty today, so we're going to pick on Arlo Scholes of the Stingrays. The insider advice, don't forget to set your lineup. If you've ever played fantasy sports at this level or any level, that's rule number 1, set your daily lineup. Arlo and the Stingrays forgot to set their lineup, and they have a very close matchup going with the Yetis, so you hope those points don't come back to cost Arlo. But yeah, certainly, even though it's the playoffs and you don't have any movement, you don't have any call-ups, you don't have any IR, you don't have the protected list going, you don't have nearly as much to manage as you do in the regular season. You still have 3 bench skaters and 1 bench goaltender in the first round. You got to work those guys in when they're playing on their nights, so don't leave them sitting on the bench. Don't forget to set your lineups as insider advice number 1, and insider advice number 2, another no-brainer, but keep tabs on the schedules because it could happen, Dean, and hopefully it doesn't because it'd be a bit of a logistical nightmare, although we have plans in place. But it is possible that the NHL, depending on these early series that started between Saturday and Wednesday when Edmonton and Winnipeg started and the North Division getting going late, some of these series' second round matchups could be starting before the conclusion of first round matchups in the NHL. So that's both for UFHL playoffs, but more so for the UFHL NHL playoff pool. You need to be on standby and ready to make your picks on less than 24 hours notice if they're going to start the second round before the end of the first round. You may have to pick some second round matchups, and you might not be able to do it all at once. It might be spread out. So certainly keep tabs on the schedules. But with that, Dean, I should mention that if the second round and first round overlap in the UFHL, as far as the playoffs go, the Klein Cup playoffs, what would happen there is the commissioner would remove the second round players that are starting the second round. They would just put those players on the bench or on the protected list so that they're not accumulating points alongside the first round players. And then when they advance to the second round, those points would just be back edited so they get all their full second round player points. But certainly there could be some chaos again with COVID and some delayed series that the second round could start in the NHL prior to the first round ending, potentially depending on length of series in this opening round.
Well, just like we had the consolation playoffs between Calgary and Vancouver are already this week. The B-side, we were calling it, me and my buddies. And, for Arlo, when Jamie Thomas and I were doing fantasy fun time, we had something called the Taco Award. I don't know if you've ever seen the league, which is all about fantasy football, but Taco, he's the bonehead character. Things always work out for him, but we had the Taco Award. So anytime somebody did something silly or boneheaded, they got the Taco Award. So Arlo, you get the Taco Award this week in the UFHL, and I really hope that doesn't impact the lineups. But you kind of make a good point. Normally, when it comes to fantasy hockey, we're done by now in almost every league. Like, I don't know of any other leagues other than this one that keeps going to this degree. So your brain maybe isn't in that I got to still do my lineup when we're at May Long weekend.
Exactly. And Arlo, as he mentioned on Telegram, this is an annual tradition for him. I've been in fantasy leagues with Arlo for a decade now. And for whatever reason, it seems like come playoff time, the brain switch flips off and he misses the lineup. And of course, in our other league and in the UFHL, we don't do any back editing. If you forget, you're on your own, right? There's nobody there to save you and recoup those points you lost. So like you said, hopefully it doesn't impact, he doesn't lose by that exact amount of points to the Yetis in the first round because they do have a close matchup. But there's nobody there to save you in the playoffs or in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League. This is professional fantasy sports. You got to be on top of it, whether it's May long or mid-December.
Yeah, no different than a coach writing out the wrong lineup, and then that player is not eligible for that game. And we've seen that happen at different times. So, wow, this is just like the real thing, as we've always been saying. Great stuff, Larry. Some juicy stuff in the Insider this week. Have yourself a great weekend.
Same to you, Dean. Thanks a lot.
This is UFHL Now with Dean Millard. Get in the game, where you own the game.
All right, that was a jam-packed edition. And again, for anybody that is having some difficulties, either making it work or even understanding the blockchain and the crypto side, there are so many people here to help. I am a novice, very much a novice, but through the tutorials, then the help I've been giving, I'm starting to understand it. And when I first looked at it, it was Greek. So there are so many people in this platform that want to help, that want to make it succeed, that want to make you rich with your investment. Just have to give it some time and reach out if you are confused. Do some research. I know it looks daunting, but it's really, really not that daunting once you get into it. All right, want to remind you of some key off-season dates. 48 hours after the Klein Cup is handed out, your entry fee of $1,000 US worth of SEO will be due. Also, the buyout window starts July 17th, the deadline for protected lists, so just under a month. July 21st and 22nd is the UFHL expansion draft. The 24th is the UFHL entry auction. The 25th is the futures auction for scouts. And 28th is NHL free agency. That's when things kick off with a bang. All right, we have so many great things going on. We told you about the contests for the UFHL, NHL, but I teased it. In the Telegram UFGA chat, there's a contest going on. There's going to be something happening with basketball as well. And with the Ultimate Fantasy League Baseball, we have a prediction contest going on in our Telegram chat. You just got to predict whatever category we're using that week for that week, and you could win some free stuff. It doesn't cost anything to enter. So everything is really coming together, and we do also have some really, really big announcements on the way. With that, I am going to wrap things up, but I do want to tell you about some of the other programming we have going on in the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. The UFFS podcast every second Sunday with Darren Bates and Larry Fisher. Darren has 2 Minute Tuesday. It's like a ball of fire coming at you, like Ray Ferraro or Pat Verbeek coming at you. It's small things, great things in small packages type thing. Tracking the Draft with Craig Button and myself on Wednesday, such a fun show. Speaking of fun, Full Count Fantasy Baseball with myself and Jordan Blundell. We really get after each other in that one. And then this one, UFHL Now on Fridays, and so much more to come as well. Thank you so much to Larry Fisher and to you for watching. This has been UFHL Now. See you later.
UFHL Now is produced by DM Productions. To get in touch, head to www.podcastalley.ca.